gonna do 20 minutes of Q&A after all the pitches are complete. It's 7 minutes per pitch. However, Mark Miller and Paul Joyce submitted a video for their pitch because they couldn't be here. It is 9 minutes and 45 minutes long. 45 seconds long. I'm sorry. Matt, I'm gonna let you know. We're gonna let pitchers know when we hit 7 minutes, but we're not gonna be a-holes about it. We're just gonna try to that means hurry it up. We're gonna go give you 6 minutes. We'll give you 6 minutes.
No, I timed it earlier. It came like to like 7:30.
We're not gonna cut you off. Q&A session is after this. So, you are named.
No, it's a secret.
Why do we still do power?
Oh shit. It's really embarrassing.
Skeletons.
Cool.
Alright, tell me when you're ready. Matt, Bob, are we good?
Yeah.
I recorded all that.
I just want to point out before we do this that my name is spelled correctly on the first sheet that you have, but incorrectly on the second.
I have to look every single time.
Is it spelled correctly?
All right. Hi, my name is Matthew Casella. A lot of people call me cassette tapes. I am pitching The Lich Queen. It is being pitched by Matthew Casella. This show is about two best friends who have been together for a long time and whose bond has started to fade. And those friends are an undead sorceress and her assistant. The Lich Queen, which is on the left, obviously, is a brassy, flamboyant character full of jokes and energy, like a mashup of Barbra Streisand, Divine, and a rotting corpse. She belts upbeat Broadway nut ballads and croons fun lounge numbers. Her assistant is a meek, humble workaholic. She's bad at standing up for herself, but she's really talented. Sort of like Jared from Super Jail or the Stapler guy from Office Space. She sings high-energy, goofy rock songs like a female Jack Black.
Nice.
What is this show about? The Lich Queen is a self-aware comedy about the friendship between an undead sorceress and her faithful assistant set in a high magic fantasy setting. So, sort of like The Emperor's New Groove, but with necromancy. So what is their world like? This is a high fantasy setting. There are magic spells, castles, maybe not with that cat, knights and dukes, orcs and goblins, an army of resurrected skeletons, and casual magic. Magic is an everyday occurrence in this setting, kind of like the way that the Flintstones used animals and dinosaurs as labor. There will be magic spells and magical creatures used for some of those similar inventions in this world. These are some of the other characters that populate this world and help advance the plot. Who else lives in this world? The Duke is a power-hungry, over-the-top, megalomaniacal jerkwad. Think a cross between Meatloaf and Lord Farquaad. The Duke's assistant is sort of a mirror image of the Lich Queen's assistant, Mikhail Gass, to the other assistants, Jack Black. The king, running a city that all these people live in, is a toothless, kindly old ruler, slipping into senility. He's very nice, not noticing a lot. The Orc King, who is a threat to this city that we're in, is an intellectual and sensitive ruler. Orcs are stereotyped as violent savages, and that's really not the case. Their people love culture, and it's sort of an ongoing joke about how highbrow they actually are. Loves classical music. Court musicians, a multi-talented group of singers. I will get back to that later when we get to music. There's also the ensemble. Townspeople in this town are pretty dumb and funny, and they get the opportunity to do this weird, dry British humor, like Monty Python. Also, skeleton dancers.
Whoa.
I want the dancers in this show to be representative of the Lich Queen's powers, her sort of skeleton army, and also I want them to be slapstick characters. I want them to do things like take off their heads and pass it to the next person, and like lose bones and stuff like that, play their rib cages as xylophones. So what happens? Very quick overview of the plot, broad strokes. The Lich Queen and her assistant are in a rut. They're bored, they hate their jobs, they're starting to feel like they aren't good friends anymore. They talk each other into taking a vacation and getting out of the world. After a glamorous spell to hide the Queen's gnarly skeleton face that you saw on one of the first slides, they set off to the big city. When they get there, they're mistaken for a pair of foreign dignitaries, and they're treated like royalty. The Lich Queen has been sort of living in a crypt with her assistant for a long time. Hasn't really had anyone be nice to her. It really goes to her head. She becomes this pompous and insufferable party girl who is just running off having fun while her assistant struggles with all this administrative busy work. The king of the city is going senile, and the duke that we talked about earlier is trying to consolidate all of his power for himself. With the arrival of the Lich Queen and her assistant, they accidentally throw a wrench in his diplomatic works, and he gets mad. And when he gets mad, he tries to kill them as diplomatically as possible. Maybe he sends them on fool's errands and wild goose chases to other cities. Maybe he just straight up tries to axe murder them. Either way, no one realizes that the Lich Queen is an undead master of dark magic. Ergo, traditional things like knives and axes and rudeness can't kill her. Meanwhile, her assistant is hitting it off with the Duke's assistant in an adorable office romance. They bond over complaining about their terrible bosses. The Duke sends the Queen and her assistant to negotiate something with the reclusive and terrifying Orc King. Orcs are stereotyped as brutal savages, so he figures it's a sure thing that they'll be killed, but no, they actually get along really well, despite the Orc King's plans to attack the city. When they get back, the Duke loses it and finally makes up an accusation that the Queen is a black musician. He's right. No one realizes that until they go to kill her, and she like dies like a skeleton queen. Like she erupts with light and smoke when they stab her. And she's actually a Lich Queen, and they find that out. Things look pretty bad. The Lich Queen is dead and waiting to be resurrected. Her assistant is waiting to be put to death in a dungeon somewhere. The Orc and Skeleton armies are getting ready to attack the city, and the assistant had to miss her date with the Duke's assistant. Can they fix their problems and save the city? Is the question that, why did I click that we're left with. So, what does it sound like? Bouncy, catchy, brass-heavy Disney anthems. Really upbeat, fun stuff. If you listen to if you've seen Emperor's New Groove, the first song from that, with Tom Jones actually singing, it's this crazy like Mayan thing with brass and keyboard and whistles. Also, if you ever heard the David Byrne album, Uh-Oh, maybe a lot like that. Lounge stuff too, ornate, organ-heavy church metal, like these bands that are listed there. You can read them yourself. Female-fronted rock. Most of the songs in the show are going to be between the assistant and the Lich Queen, and obviously you need powerful female vocalists, and you want to be able to showcase those vocalists. The court musicians, there's a running joke that the court musicians were a band of musicians that became court musicians and then had their instruments stolen. So now, throughout the rest of the show, they're constantly experimenting with different vocal styles. Doing like Billy Joe Barbershop Quartet stuff, beatboxing, the rap vignettes from Robin Hood Men in Tights. There's a metal band called Van Canto, which is drums and 5 vocalists, and they sing metal instruments. Like like that kind of shit. Really weird harmonies like that. And so every time there's a royal scene, they sort of do a little interstitial music. Why should we do the show? High fantasy and magic. Magic is cool. Fantasy is cool. Some of the things that I would like to see in the show we already talked about. Skeletons. The Lich Queen would be double cast, so that there would be a human queen, a human Lich Queen, and her skeletal, gnarly, rotted corpse version of herself. And I want to do things like have both of them walk past a frame in the backdrop at the same time. Cool. So it looks like she's walking past a window or a mirror, and she sees her reflection as her skeleton self. I brainstormed a couple ideas about when she's actually murdered, having like her robe open up and something light up and shoot smoke, and she like crumples to the ground, that kind of stuff. Magic rules. Friendship. This show is about, at its core, is about friendship. It's about the relationship between these two people that have been through a bunch of shit, figuring out whether they still care about each other and what they're willing to do and sacrifice to be in each other's lives. Physical comedy, we kind of talked about that. The skeletons are going to be really goofy. Female leads and also female creative team. I've already been brainstorming the show with Violet Gray and Stephanie Joyal, and since it's about female relationships, I can't presume to write those relationships as well myself as women could. So I'd be actively recruiting and seeking out female creative members of this team. Brain power. No one, with the exception of the Duke, solves their problems with violence in this show. Everything is about coming up with a logical solution and using, depending on other people, and using your brain. And last, but not least,
I was going to ask if there was a skeleton.
How could that skeleton play the trumpet? That's ridiculous.
I don't know, no love. Thank you guys very much. That was the Lich Queen. It's a 10-hour mix. We just need break. I didn't